So I'm David Grusky. I direct the Stanford Center on Poverty and Inequality, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to the 4th annual State of the Union Conference. This conference is sponsored by the Center on Poverty and Inequality, by the Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research, by the Stanford Center for Comparative Studies in Race and Ethnicity. And the purpose of the conference is very simple: to ensure that critical facts on poverty and inequality are accorded the same visibility as other indicators of the country's health. So each year, the Center on Poverty and Inequality chooses a theme for the State of the Union Conference. And this year, we'll be taking stock of racial and ethnic inequalities. Now, the conceit behind this conference and the report that's associated with it is that by examining the many different types of racial and ethnic inequality all at once, it becomes possible to identify common shortcomings of the country's policy. Shortcomings that appear and reappear time and again as we examine the many different types of outcomes that will be discussed today. If you don't undertake that type of comprehensive stock taking, it's too easy to default to piecemeal policy that targets particular disparities, even when those disparities may emanate from common causes, meaning then that at least in principle it would be possible to undertake more coordinated and comprehensive policy. So there's some virtue then to stepping back and asking whether the country's piecemeal approach to policy, whether the country's anemic approach to policy is really getting the job done. We're going to find, I would contend, that in many cases it's not getting the job done, that in fact in some cases those very policies that are designed to reduce inequality have exactly the opposite effect. But I'm going to say no more. I'll leave it at that, and I'll let you reach your own conclusions on the basis of the excellent scholarship that's on offer today. So it's now my distinct pleasure to introduce my good friend, Lauren Spieth. Dr. Spieth is the CEO of the Elfenworks Foundation, a 501c3 operating foundation that advances change by fostering creative, technology-based solutions to some of the world's most important problems. They like to say they're on the cutting edge of change, on the cutting edge of hope, and indeed they're just that. We've asked Lauren to make a few opening comments because some 10 years ago, when the Center on Poverty and Inequality was established, the Elfenworks Foundation was our big-time supporter, and they remain as such. And I should stress that Lauren was very much a special type of hands-on supporter. She wasn't in the least afraid to get into the trenches to help us build our very first website, to produce and direct the center's launch event and film, a concert for hope. And she has many ongoing involvements. She remains an external advisor for the Center on Poverty and Inequality. She works with many universities on issues of poverty law. She has a deep involvement with Campus Movie Fest. She's a big-time supporter of social entrepreneurship and socially responsible business. And she's a life member of the Board of Counselors for the Carter Center, and much more. I can't do justice to her relentless dedication. It's my great honor to turn the floor over to Dr. Lauren Spieth.
Hi, everyone. I appreciate that kind introduction. Well, I was rehearsing my speech last night to my 2 puppies, and they fell asleep at my feet. So I'm hoping this goes better than that. One of our proudest partnerships was with the Stanford Center on Poverty and Inequality. And it's one of the most interesting projects I've ever worked on as a programmer, developing Inequality.com about 10 years ago now. It's an honor to be here with you today as the center hosts the 4th annual State of the Union on Poverty and Inequality. It's an annual assessment of key factors, poverty, mobility, and inequality measures. It takes a look at where the country stands. Seeing where we stand is harder than it sounds, but it's critically important. Because where there's no vision, the people perish. When you're operating blind, you're afraid of making a move. When uncertainty abounds, when the way is murky, we slow down, fearful we may trip on what we cannot see or that something might blindside us. Too much of that can slow us down to the point where we freeze, we're paralyzed, heads down in eternal rain, sort of stuck in Dante's 9th circle of hell, frozen. But that's not the problem in this room. In this room, I see dedicated practitioners, civil servants, researchers, educators, hard at work. You're about to hear from some of them, experts on the state of the union in education, health, incarceration, mobility, and other areas where poverty and inequality are at play. This year, the focus is on racial and ethnic disparities. We'll hear some startling reports. Vast inequalities in access to building wealth, job insecurity, societal burdens from intensive incarceration, educational gaps, racial disparities affecting life and death itself. Even in today's polarized society, it's pretty clear we could be making better choices. Too often, we stand in our own shadow and wonder why it's dark. But standing together, we can cast shadows opposite. Standing together. At Elfinworks, partnerships are really crucial. Our partnerships focus outward with students as social justice filmmakers or with nonprofits for better computer security or sharing our Stress Buster app to cut down on toxic stress or any number of things. We value partners who are not unsettled by the unforeseeable, not rocked by risks, not paralyzed by the precarious. We look for partners who know the value of what they're doing, who have vision. Like you, we are convinced of the power of evidence-based research when carried out meticulously and without bias. Like a lighthouse existing for all ships equally, under whatever banner. It illuminates the terrain, allowing for navigation around submerged rocks and dangerous currents. In a world where wreckers will set false beacons on rocky shores, luring an unwary captain to a perilous end, the impartiality of a known lighthouse is crucial. Should the light falter, a ship may sink, waiting for morning light. We believe Stanford has lighthouse qualities. And I think you do too, or you wouldn't be here today. When I joined forces with the Center on Poverty and Inequality as one of the principal architects on inequality.com, bringing with me my colleague John Watkins, who's here today in the back, in 2006, we had no idea what the future held, nor that I'd be here today with you at such a critical moment, just as nobody in my circles knew that the Great Recession was about to hit. Later at the reception, I hope to see you again to share briefly some of the center's efforts since the launch with the Concert for Hope, which celebrated a shared vision, a vision to delve into what works, what doesn't, and why, so we could move the needle on poverty and inequality, a vision to articulate why we don't need a moral argument to do something effective right now to tackle it. Because societies that choose a high poverty road do so at high cost to rich and poor alike. Just as 10 years ago, we had no idea what the future held, when you, all of you, took that bold step and generous step to concern yourselves in whatever way with poverty and inequality. You didn't know exactly what the future held either. but you did have a vision for the better. Vision transcends temporary circumstance. Vision, quite simply, shines. As you listen today to the presentations and ponder them, the state of our safety net or the current healthcare debate and so on, listen for their underlying vision. Even if one speech or another is tangential to you, on some level, it intertwines with your vision. That same vision that brought you here today. Where you're seated, in your seat, paying attention and working so hard in your own sphere of influence. Looking around this room, I see so many lighthouses. You've been warning ships off rocks and weathering storms for long years. And you're ready for more bruising storms, if necessary, for work you find worthwhile. Surely partnership is one way we'll weather the next storm, whatever form it may take. So look around, across the room, to your colleagues. One of the great joys of an event like this is having the chance to get to know people, other people. So you can reach out in the breaks to get to know some of these people you might not otherwise meet. It's a key. So I applaud all of you, and I look forward very much to getting to know some of you more as well. Thanks so much.